At the courthouse gate, my bitter cousin slapped me, grabbed my neck and handcuffed me, spitting, "You're a disgrace to this family." My father said nothing, until minutes later he saw me in the judge's seat. What if the very people meant to be your family became your greatest obstacles, only to inadvertently push you towards your destiny? That's my story, and it begins with a slap. Not just any slap, but one delivered in public outside a courthouse by my own cousin, who screamed I was a filthy animal while my father stood by, silent. What they couldn't have known was that just 5 minutes later, I would be ascending to the judge's bench. My name is Alara. I was 31 when I made history as the youngest judge in our county. It wasn't a triumph my family celebrated. My childhood in a quiet Connecticut town was shaped by my father, Malcolm, a respected businessman known for his community work, yet emotionally cold at home, especially towards me. My mother, Evelyn, was my sanctuary, always trying to bridge the chasm between my father's impossibly high standards and my yearning for his affection. She championed my academic pursuits, my biggest cheerleader. But when I was 12, cancer claimed her, and our home, once somewhat warm, became a mausoleum of unspoken grief. With Evelyn gone, the stark contrast in how my father treated me versus my cousin Serena became unbearable. Serena, Aunt Bethany's daughter, lived only 3 blocks away and was a constant presence. 2 years my senior, she'd somehow claimed a special place in my father's heart I could never reach. "Alara, why can't you be more like your cousin?" became the incessant refrain of my adolescence. Serena was vibrant, quick with a joke that always made my father laugh. I was quiet, preferring books to social gatherings. My father overlooked Serena's mediocre grades, while I consistently earned perfect scores and joined every academic club. My 8th grade science project won the state competition and a feature in the local paper. He barely glanced at it. 2 weeks later, Serena making the junior varsity cheerleading squad prompted a celebratory dinner at the finest restaurant in town. "Your cousin understands teamwork," he remarked to me that night. "That will take her further than any science award ever will." As we matured, Serena's jealousy simmered and then boiled over into small, cruel acts. She'd mock my boring focus on studies. Once, she drenched my study notes with soda the night before a major exam. Another time, she lied to a boy I admired, claiming I'd slandered him. My father never intervened. The most painful incident occurred during high school. I poured my soul into a short story for English class, a narrative about a girl finding her voice after losing her mother. Serena, gaining access to my computer, copied large sections, slightly reworded them and submitted it as her own. I was crushed. When I confronted her, she simply shrugged. "What does it matter? You always get good grades." I needed this win. The teacher believed me, given our academic histories, and Serena received a failing grade. This ignited a family explosion. Aunt Bethany furiously called my father, accusing me of humiliating her daughter. Instead of defending me, my father grounded me. "Family comes first, Alara," he lectured. "You could have just written another story." That night I cried myself to sleep, utterly alone. The next morning, seeking refuge, I wandered into the career counselor's office. Ms. Jenkins, seeing my tear-stained face, invited me to sit. For an hour, I spoke openly, admitting for the first time my aspiration to become a lawyer. "I want to champion justice," I told her, "to be in a place where truth prevails." Ms. Jenkins connected me with a local attorney, Clara Olson, who became my first mentor. Clara showed me that women could thrive in law through intellect and integrity, and she taught me I didn't need my father's validation to pursue my dreams. When I shared my pre-law plans with my father, he dismissed it instantly. "Lawyers are a dime a dozen, Alara. That's an unrealistic dream. You should consider business administration. You could work for me." His words stung, but they also hardened my resolve. I applied to top pre-law programs, secured scholarships, and prepared to forge my own path. College was a bittersweet blend of liberation and terror. Liberating because I was finally free from my father's critical gaze and Serena's constant undermining. Terrifying because I was entirely self-sufficient. While classmates received parental support, I juggled 3 part-time jobs alongside a full course load. Sleep became a luxury, but I was determined to succeed without my father's help. Despite the relentless schedule, I maintained a stellar GPA and secured an internship at the district attorney's office. When I called home with the news, my father was distracted. "That's nice, Alara. Did you hear Serena got promoted at the mall? She's an assistant manager now." Every conversation followed this disheartening pattern. My achievements minimized, Serena's ordinary milestones celebrated. Eventually, my calls home became less frequent. My father rarely initiated contact. Meanwhile, Serena had dropped out of community college, but her standing in the family remained unshaken. My aunt and father praised her street smarts, and showered her with financial and emotional support. When Serena needed a car, my father co-signed her loan. When my winter boots developed holes, he suggested I manage my budget better. The painful disparity pushed me to build my own support system. I found solace and strength in friendships with classmates who shared my drive and values. Most importantly, I met Lena, my senior year debate partner in constitutional law. Brilliant, witty, and fiercely loyal, she became the sister I never had. Lena was the first person I told when I received law school acceptances, one with a substantial scholarship. She celebrated with me, buying champagne she couldn't afford. When I called my father, he sounded annoyed. Law school? That's 3 more years of not earning a real income. Are you sure about this, Elara? My infrequent letters home detailing my law school experiences mostly went unanswered. The few replies were brief, impersonal, and always included updates about Serena I hadn't requested. During my second-year winter break, I returned home hoping time had mellowed the family dynamic. Lena urged caution. Don't expect too much. People don't change overnight. He was right. The holiday gathering at Aunt Bethany's was a disaster. Serena, now 25 and a salon receptionist, monopolized the conversation with exaggerated stories of celebrity clients. When relatives asked about my studies, Serena quickly interjected with a dramatic tale of a supposed $100 tip. Later, I overheard her telling my cousin Blake in the kitchen, Elara thinks she's so special with her fancy law school, but did you know she has massive loans? She'll be in debt forever. Plus, I heard she's barely passing. Neither statement was true. My scholarship covered most tuition and I was in the top 10% of my class. When I confronted Serena, she laughed it off as a joke, but the damage was done. Blake looked at me differently for the rest of the night. The final indignity came when my father pulled me aside before I left. Serena mentioned you've been struggling in school, he said. There's no shame in coming home and finding a more practical path. I was stunned. Dad, I'm not struggling. I'm excelling. Why would you believe her without even asking me? He shrugged. Serena's always been straightforward. You tend to exaggerate your accomplishments. That night I checked into a hotel. The next morning I drove back to campus 2 days early. On that long drive I made a life-altering decision. I would distance myself from those who couldn't celebrate my success. I would build my own life. My final year of law school was dedicated entirely to my future. I joined the law review, competed in moot court, and secured a prestigious clerkship. When professors and colleagues recognized my potential, I didn't call home. The chasm between us was too vast for phone calls. I graduated with honors, Lena cheering wildly. My father and Serena were conspicuously absent despite invitations. That night, celebrating with Lena and classmates, I realized I had forged a new family, built on mutual respect and genuine support. My early career as a public defender was challenging but deeply rewarding. Representing clients who couldn't afford legal counsel, often against overwhelming odds, I felt I was exactly where I belonged. Within 2 years, my reputation for thoroughness, ethics, and genuine client care grew. Judges noticed, prosecutors respected my arguments, and senior attorneys assigned me complex cases. One such case led me to Judge Vivian Sterling's courtroom, a formidable presence known for her sharp intellect. After a successful motion, she asked me to stay. You have potential, counselor, she said, peering over her glasses. Ever considered the bench? The question surprised me. Becoming a judge. Yes, that's generally what the bench refers to, she replied with dry humor. It's never too early to consider your trajectory. This county needs more judges who understand the disadvantaged. That conversation planted a seed. Judge Sterling became a mentor, guiding me to take on cases that expanded my experience and profile. One prominent case involved defending a young woman framed by her employer, a wealthy local businessman. My investigation exposed his financial misdeeds, leading to the charges against my client being dismissed and an investigation into her former boss. The case made local headlines. News of my professional triumphs eventually reached my hometown. I heard from a former teacher that Serena had grown increasingly resentful. While I built a legal career, Serena cycled through jobs, never staying anywhere for long. After 5 years of minimal contact, I cautiously attempted to reconnect with my father. Time had dulled the sharpness of our past. I hoped my accomplishments might finally earn his respect. I called, suggesting dinner during an upcoming legal conference in Connecticut. The upscale restaurant was tense. My father, Malcolm, looked older than 58, new lines etched around his eyes. After stilted pleasantries, he inevitably shifted to Serena. Your cousin's been having a rough patch, he sighed, swirling his scotch. Lost another job last month. Not her fault, of course. The manager had it in for her. I nodded politely, having heard similar excuses my entire life. That's unfortunate. What are her plans now? He sighed again. She's had some legal troubles too. Nothing serious. A couple of DUIs, a misunderstanding about some merchandise at her last retail job. Translation: Serena had been caught stealing. The familiar pattern of excuses and minimization was exactly as I remembered. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully. If she needs legal advice, I could recommend some good attorneys. His expression hardened. We don't need your charity, Alara. Serena will figure things out. She always does. The dinner ended shortly after, solidifying the realization that some relationships cannot be mended by time alone. We were strangers connected only by DNA and a painful past. A year later, I was shortlisted for a judicial appointment. At 30, I'd be among the state's youngest judges if selected. The vetting was rigorous. 2 weeks before the final decision, an anonymous complaint arrived, questioning my character and fitness, alleging unethical behavior as a public defender. The accusations were false, yet suspiciously detailed about my personal life, hinting at Serena's authorship. The timing, the intimate knowledge, the attempt to sabotage my career, it all pointed to her. Fortunately, my record spoke for itself. Colleagues and even former opponents vouched for my integrity. Judge Sterling wrote a powerful letter of support. The committee investigated, found the claims meritless, and appointed me to the bench. The experience shook me but strengthened my resolve to serve with fairness and integrity. The official announcement came on a crisp autumn morning. At 31, I was the youngest judge in our county's history. The local paper ran a front-page story: rising legal star Alara Walker appointed to county court. Judge Sterling was the first to congratulate me, gifting me her own fountain pen engraved with my initials. This was given to me 30 years ago, she said. Now it's yours. Use it to sign orders that uphold justice. Colleagues celebrated. The chief judge welcomed me to the family. Family. The word struck a bittersweet chord. This should have been a moment shared with those who had known me longest. It's that they were absent. Lena, who had driven 3 hours to surprise me, noticed my momentary sadness. They're missing out, not you, she whispered, squeezing my hand. We're your family now. She was right, of course, but a part of me still wished my father could see who I had become. 2 days later, my phone rang. The Connecticut area code. My father. After nearly a year of silence. For a fleeting moment, I thought perhaps he'd seen the news. Maybe, finally, he was calling to acknowledge my success. Alara, we need to talk, he said without preamble, his voice strained. Is everything okay, Dad? Are you ill? Concern immediately overrode our complicated history. No, nothing like that. It's Serena. He's in trouble. Serious trouble this time. Of course. He wasn't calling about my appointment. He was calling because Serena needed something. What kind of trouble? I asked, my voice cooling several degrees. Legal trouble. Fraud charges. Identity theft. They're saying she could face serious time. She needs a good lawyer, Alara. Someone who knows the system. The irony was almost too much. After years of dismissing my career, he now sought to leverage it for Serena. Dad, I'm a judge now. I can't represent Serena or recommend specific attorneys. It would be an ethical violation. Silence stretched between us, then a bitter laugh. A judge? Since when? The question confirmed he hadn't even bothered to search my name in years. Since last week, I replied evenly. It was in the news. Another long pause. Well, congratulations, he said, the words hollow. But that doesn't help Serena's situation. Surely you can make some calls, pull some strings. That's not how this works. I have ethical obligations. The most I can suggest is that Serena contact the public defender's office if she can't afford private counsel. So that's it? You're abandoning your family when we need you? After everything we've done for you? The accusation was so outrageous I almost laughed. What exactly had they done besides undermine and dismiss me? I'm sorry you see it that way, Dad. I truly am. But I can't compromise my professional ethics, even for family. He hung up without saying goodbye. Later that evening, Prosecutor Sarah Miller called. We developed a professional relationship over many courtroom battles. Her after-hours call was unusual. Alara, I'm sorry to bother you, but I thought you should know. We filed charges today against a Serena Walker for fraud and identity theft. Given your last name, I wondered if there might be a relation. She's my cousin, I admitted, but I haven't had much contact with her in years. I see. Well, this is awkward, but part of the case involves her apparently using someone else's personal information to open credit accounts. The victim's name is Alara Walker. My blood ran cold. She used my identity. It appears so. The accounts were opened years ago, using an old college address of yours. The fraud was only discovered recently during collection actions. The pieces clicked into place. Years ago, I'd received strange debt collector calls I'd dismissed as scams. Now I understood. Her arraignment is next Tuesday in county court, Sarah continued. Given the personal connection, I wanted to give you a heads up so you're not assigned to the case. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate the courtesy. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. Serena had not only tried to sabotage my career with false accusations but had stolen my identity years earlier. The depth of her resentment was far greater than I'd imagined. I faced a difficult decision. As a family member and victim, I should attend the arraignment. As a newly appointed judge, I needed to maintain professional distance. And as someone who had spent years trying to escape toxic family dynamics, I questioned if I should involve myself at all. After a sleepless night, I decided to attend Serena's arraignment. Not as a judge but as a family member. Despite everything, she was still my cousin. Perhaps seeing her face consequences would be a first step towards her taking responsibility. And maybe, just maybe, my presence might open a door to reconciliation with my father, who would surely be there to support Serena. Little did I know my decision would lead to one of the most humiliating and ultimately transformative moments of my life. Tuesday morning dawned, crisp and golden, the autumn leaves brilliant. I deliberated over my attire longer than usual. I wasn't appearing as a judge but not as a regular civilian either. I settled on a conservative navy dress and tailored jacket, professional, yet not overtly judicial. The drive to the courthouse was familiar but my churning stomach was not. I'd faced countless difficult situations in that building, yet nothing prepared me for seeing my father and Serena together under these circumstances. I arrived early. As I pulled into the judicial parking area, Officer Benitez, who regularly worked in my courtroom, approached. "Good morning, Judge Walker," he said. "I thought you weren't on the docket today." "I'm not here in an official capacity, Officer Benitez. Personal matter." His eyes widened slightly. "Understood, Your Honor. Will you be entering through the judicial entrance?" I shook my head. "No, I'll use the main entrance today." "Thank you." Walking around to the public side, I spotted my father near the steps, checking his watch impatiently. He looked older, his shoulders stooped, hair completely gray. For a moment, observing him unobserved, I felt a pang of pity. He looked up, saw me approaching. His expression cycled through surprise, confusion, and weariness. "Elara, what are you doing here?" "Hello, Dad," I said, stopping a few feet away. "I'm here for Serena's arraignment." His eyes narrowed. "Why? To gloat? To make sure they throw the book at her?" The accusation stung, but I kept my voice level. "Despite everything, she's family, and I thought you might need support too." He seemed taken aback, unable to reconcile my presence with his perception of me as someone who had abandoned family obligations. Before he could respond, a car screeched to a halt. Serena emerged from the passenger side, Aunt Bethany from the driver's. Serena looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was in a messy ponytail, dark roots showing through the blonde dye. Her face was puffy, eyes bloodshot. She wore a black pantsuit that hung loosely, suggesting recent weight loss. For a moment, I felt genuine sympathy. That feeling evaporated the instant she spotted me. "What the hell is she doing here?" Serena demanded, stalking toward us, her voice loud enough to attract attention. "Serena, calm down," Aunt Bethany hissed. "We're at a courthouse." "I don't care. She has no right to be here." Serena stopped directly in front of me, close enough I could smell coffee on her breath. "Come to watch the show, Elara? Enjoying seeing me at my lowest?" "That's not why I'm here," I said quietly. "I came to support Dad and to see if there's any way I can help." "Help?" Serena barked a harsh, brittle laugh. "That's rich. You're the reason I'm in this mess." My father stepped between us. "Serena, this isn't the place. Let's go inside." "No." Serena pushed past him. "She needs to hear this. You think you're so perfect, don't you, Elara? Little Miss Perfect with her perfect grades and her perfect job and her perfect life. You've always had everything handed to you." The absurdity of her statement momentarily stunned me. Everything handed to me? I had worked multiple jobs through school while she dropped out and still received my father's financial support. "Serena, I know you're upset, but that's not true. I've worked hard for everything I've achieved." "Worked hard?" Her voice rose to a near shriek. "You sabotaged me. You told the DA about those accounts, didn't you? You've been waiting for a chance to ruin me." "I didn't know about the fraud until last week," I said, struggling to maintain composure. "I had no idea you had used my identity." This admission seemed to push her over the edge. "Liar," she screamed. Then, before anyone could react, she slapped me hard across the face. The blow was shocking more than painful. The sound cracked through the morning air like a gunshot. People around us froze. My cheek burned and I tasted blood where my teeth cut the inside of my mouth. Before I could recover, Serena grabbed my jacket collar, momentarily choking me as she pulled me closer to her distorted face. "You filthy animal," she spat, her voice low and venomous now. "You're a disgrace to this family. You think that robe makes you better than us? You're nothing." 2 courthouse security officers ran toward us. My father stood frozen, watching, making no move to intervene. Aunt Bethany tugged ineffectually at Serena's arm. The officers separated us, one gently moving me back, the other restraining Serena. "Is everyone all right?" the first officer asked, looking at me with concern. "I'm fine," I said, straightening my jacket with shaking hands. "Judge Walker, do you want to press charges?" he asked quietly. Serena's eyes widened at the word judge, looking at me with new understanding and horror. "No charges," I said firmly, "but I would appreciate an escort inside." Officer Benitez nodded and led me up the steps. As we walked away, I heard Serena burst into tears behind me. My father still hadn't said a word in my defense. Inside, Officer Benitez directed me to a small conference room. "Take a minute to compose yourself, Judge. Can I get you some water or coffee?" "Water would be great." "Thank you." When he left, I finally allowed myself to feel the full impact. My hands trembled as I touched my stinging cheek. Tears welled, not from pain, but from the public humiliation and the painful confirmation that my father would always choose Serena, even when she was unequivocally in the wrong. I had harbored a small hope that today might bring reconciliation. Instead, it only reinforced what I had known for years but refused to fully accept. There was no relationship to salvage. In that quiet room, surrounded by the legal system I had dedicated my life to, I finally let go of the fantasy that my family would ever see or value me. The realization was both devastating and strangely liberating. I don't know how long I sat there. The shock of the confrontation had left me disoriented. A gentle knock interrupted my thoughts. Sarah Miller, the prosecutor, poked her head in. "Alara, are you okay?" I heard there was an incident outside. I managed a weak smile. News travels fast. It's a courthouse. Gossip moves at the speed of light. He sat down, concerned. Security reported what happened. "Are you sure you don't want to file charges?" "I'm sure. It would only escalate things." Sarah nodded, then checked her watch with a frown. "Have you seen Judge Harrison around? He's supposed to be handling arraignments in courtroom C today." "No, I haven't." "Is there a problem?" She sighed. "Judge Reeves was rushed to the hospital this morning for emergency gallbladder surgery. Harrison was supposed to cover her docket, but he's not answering his phone." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "Serena's arraignment is in courtroom C." "Yes, among about 20 other cases." Sarah ran a hand through her hair. "We're trying to find another judge, but everyone's booked solid." Court clerk Brenda appeared at the door, breathless. "There you are, Sarah. We have a situation." She stopped abruptly when she saw me. "Oh, Judge Walker. Thank goodness. We need your help." "Pie help?" "Judge Reeves is out for emergency surgery. Judge Harrison is unreachable, and we have a full arraignment docket starting in 15 minutes. You're the only judge in the building not currently in court." "Brenda," I said carefully, "my cousin is on that docket. She's being arraigned for identity theft using my identity." Brenda's eyes widened. "Oh dear. That is a complication." Sarah interjected. "We could delay the whole docket, but that means 20 people either wait all day or have to come back tomorrow. Some in custody." I thought quickly. Let me call Chief Judge Reyes. This requires his guidance. Chief Judge Reyes picked up on the second ring. I explained the situation concisely. The confrontation outside, my obvious conflict of interest. "I see the dilemma," he said. "Here's what we'll do. You can open court and handle the administrative aspects. Explain your conflict with one specific case and recuse yourself for that matter only. I'll send Judge Kim from my chambers to handle your cousin's arraignment. He was working on opinions today but can step in for one case." "Thank you, sir. That seems like the best solution." "One more thing, Alara," he added before hanging up. "Document everything about the incident outside. If your cousin made physical contact with you on courthouse grounds, that's a serious matter, regardless of family ties." "Yes, sir." Brenda waited anxiously when I hung up. Chief Judge Reyes says I should proceed with opening court and handle all cases except Serena's. Judge Kim will come down for that arraignment. Relief washed over her face. "Perfect. Thank you, Judge Walker. I'll have your robes brought to the judicial chambers behind courtroom C immediately." 20 minutes later, I adjusted my robes. My cheeks still showed a faint red mark, but it wasn't immediately noticeable. I pulled my hair into a tight bun and adopted the judicial demeanor I had practiced. Calm, impartial, dignified. When I entered the courtroom through the judge's entrance, the bailiff called out, "All rise." Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Alara Walker presiding. As I took my seat, I scanned the crowded courtroom. My heart nearly stopped when I saw my father and Serena in the gallery. Serena's mouth fell open in shock. My father's face drained of color as he recognized who sat on the bench. I forced myself to look away and focus. Good morning, everyone. We have a full docket today and I appreciate your patience. Before we begin, I need to make a brief statement. There is one case on today's docket where I have a personal conflict of interest and will be recusing myself. When we reach the matter of State versus Serena Walker, Judge Kim will temporarily take the bench to handle that arraignment. For all other matters, we will proceed as normal. The court clerk handed me the docket and I began calling cases. I handled each arraignment with careful attention, explaining charges, confirming rights, addressing bail, and setting dates. All the while, I was acutely aware of my father and Serena watching me. With each case I handled competently and professionally, I could feel the weight of their gaze. For the first time, they were seeing me in my element. Respected, authoritative, confident. After nearly an hour, we reached Serena's case. The court calls State versus Serena Walker, case number 2024 CR 789. As previously stated, I am recusing myself from this matter due to a personal conflict. We will take a brief recess while Judge Kim assumes the bench. I stood and exited through the judge's door, passing Judge Kim in the hallway. Thank you for stepping in, Your Honor. He nodded. No problem, Alara. Family cases are always complicated. I waited in my chambers while Judge Kim handled Serena's arraignment. I resisted the urge to peek. Whatever happened now was out of my hands. 20 minutes later, a knock. Judge Kim entered, already removing his robe. All done, he said. She pleaded not guilty, but her attorney indicated they'll likely be working on a plea agreement. Given the evidence, that's probably wise. Thank you again. He hesitated at the door. By the way, your father asked me where he could find you. I didn't give him any information, but I thought you should know. My heart skipped a beat. Thank you for the heads up. After Judge Kim left, I returned to the courtroom to finish the remaining cases. Serena was gone, presumably taken back into custody or released on bail, but my father still sat in the gallery watching me intently. For the next hour, I focused entirely on the cases before me. With the final case concluded, I adjourned court and retreated to my chambers. I was hanging up my robe when a knock came at the door. Yes. I called, expecting Brenda. The door opened slowly and my father stood in the doorway, looking uncertain and somehow smaller. May I come in? He asked, his voice lacking its usual confidence. I nodded, motioning to the chair across from my desk. For a long moment we sat in silence. The roles of our relationship were suddenly and dramatically reversed. In this room I was the authority figure. He was the visitor. My father cleared his throat. So, Judge. You never told me. I raised an eyebrow. I tried to, Dad. Many times over many years. You were always more interested in Serena's latest job at the mall. He flinched at the accuracy of the statement. I saw you today in court. You were impressive. Coming from him, it was perhaps the closest thing to praise I had ever received. I didn't know how to respond, so I simply said, thank you. Serena was released on bail, he continued. Her lawyer seems to think she'll get a plea deal. Probation, restitution, community service. That sounds appropriate for a first offense, I said neutrally. Another long silence stretched between us. Finally, he said what he had clearly come to say. I'm sorry about what happened outside. She shouldn't have done that. No, she shouldn't have. And I should have stopped her. Or said something. I looked directly at him. Yes, you should have. He held my gaze for a moment, then looked away. I've made a lot of mistakes, Alara. With you. I see that now. It was an admission I had waited decades to hear, but it felt hollow, coming only after he had seen me in a position of power. Had I remained a public defender, would this realization ever have come? Why did you always favor her over me? I asked the question that had haunted me, finally finding voice. My father sighed heavily. She reminded me of myself. Struggling, making mistakes, needing second chances. You were always so capable, so self-sufficient. Like your mother. His voice caught on the last word. After Evelyn died, looking at you is painful. You have her eyes, her determination. So you punished me for reminding you of Mom and rewarded Serena for being a mess? He winced. When you put it that way, it sounds terrible. It was terrible, Dad. It was terrible to grow up feeling like I was doing something wrong by doing everything right. The conversation with my father in my chambers that day didn't magically repair 20 years of damage. There was no tearful embrace, no instant reconciliation. But it was a beginning. The first honest exchange we'd had since my mother died. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said as he prepared to leave. But I am proud of what you've accomplished, Alara. even if I've been terrible at showing it. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It means something to hear it even now. We agreed to meet for dinner the following month, a small step toward whatever our relationship might become. As he reached the door, he turned back. Your mother would have been so proud of you. She always said you would do remarkable things. After he left, I sat alone, letting tears fall freely for the first time that day. They were complicated tears. Grief for the relationship I had never truly had with my father, relief at the small breakthrough, and a bittersweet pride in how far I had come despite everything. The weeks that followed brought significant developments. Serena accepted a plea deal, full restitution for the fraudulently obtained money using my identity, 2 years of probation and community service. Sarah Miller told me that during negotiations, Serena had expressed genuine remorse, particularly about the courthouse incident. She asked if you'd be willing to meet with her attorney present. I considered the request carefully. Not yet. Maybe someday, but I'm not ready for that. My decision to maintain boundaries with Serena was part of a larger commitment to my own well-being. For too long, I had allowed the hope of family approval to influence my emotions and choices. Now I was prioritizing my own healing. I started seeing Dr. Anya Sharma, a therapist specializing in family trauma. Our weekly sessions helped me process not just the recent dramatic events, but the long-standing patterns that had shaped my life. You've been seeking validation from people fundamentally incapable of giving it, she observed. That's not a reflection on your worth but on their limitations. My support network proved invaluable. Lena visited frequently, bringing home-cooked meals and the unconditional friendship that had sustained me for years. My colleagues on the bench checked in regularly. Judge Sterling, my mentor, took me to lunch. I heard you handled yourself with remarkable dignity, she said. Not everyone could maintain judicial composure after being assaulted by a family member. I didn't feel very dignified in the moment, I admitted. That's the secret of the robe, she said with a knowing smile. It's not about how you feel, it's about how you conduct yourself despite how you feel. 6 months after the courthouse confrontation, I met my father for dinner. These monthly meetings had become a tentative new tradition, each slightly less awkward than the last. Serena's been doing well in therapy, he mentioned. She's holding down a job at the library, staying sober. That's good to hear, I said sincerely. While I wasn't ready to reconnect with Serena, I didn't wish her ill. How are things with you? I asked him. Better. He hesitated, then added, I've been seeing someone, a grief counselor. Should have done it 20 years ago after your mother died. This surprised me. My father had always dismissed therapy as paying strangers to listen to your problems. What changed your mind? I asked. You, he said simply. Seeing you that day in court, so composed, so strong even after everything that happened. It made me realize how much I've missed by holding on to the past. It wasn't a perfect relationship. Too much history separated us. But it was honest in a way it had never been before. On the anniversary of my mother's death, I made a pilgrimage to her grave for the first time in years. I brought yellow roses, her favorite, and spent an hour sitting beside her headstone, telling her about my life, my achievements, my struggles. I wish you could have seen me take the bench, Mom, I whispered, tracing the letters of her name. But I felt you there somehow. One unexpected outcome of my personal journey was a new professional initiative. I started a mentoring program for young women from challenging backgrounds interested in legal careers. Once a month, I invited high school and college students to the courthouse for workshops on law, professional development, and resilience. The law saved me, I told them during our first session. It gave me structure when my life lacked it, purpose when I felt lost, and ultimately, a way to create justice when I had experienced injustice. Watching these young women find their voices and strengths became one of the most rewarding aspects of my life. Many came from situations far more difficult than mine, yet showed remarkable determination. You're creating a legacy, Lena observed, something that will outlast any family drama. He was right. While I couldn't change my past, I could shape my future and influence the futures of others. The cycle of dysfunction that had defined my family for generations had stopped with me. As I approach my 33rd birthday, I reflect on the past 2 years with a sense of hard-won peace. The young woman who once desperately sought her father's approval has been replaced by someone who understands that true validation comes from within. I recently added a single family photo to my office. A candid shot of my mother and me at the beach when I was about 9. We're both laughing, our hair wild from the wind, genuine joy captured in a fleeting moment. It reminds me daily of where I came from and how far I've traveled. The journey of healing is rarely linear. There are still days when old wounds feel fresh, when a casual comment or memory triggers the pain of rejection. But those moments no longer define me or dictate my responses. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about excusing harmful behavior. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment. My cousin's attack at the courthouse door could have been just another painful chapter in our troubled family story. Instead, it became a turning point that ultimately led to greater understanding and peace. When she called me a filthy animal and my father stood by watching, I thought it was my lowest moment. I couldn't have imagined that minutes later, sitting in the judge's seat, I would begin the process of reclaiming my narrative and redefining my worth. We don't get to choose our families or the wounds they inflict. But we do get to choose how we respond to those wounds, whether we let them define us or use them as catalysts for growth. In taking the judge's seat that day, I wasn't just fulfilling a professional role. I was taking the seat of judgment in my own life, deciding what would hold weight and what would be dismissed. This journey has been profound. Has there ever been a moment when someone tried to humiliate you, but it unexpectedly revealed your own deep strength? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Take care.